Chapter 11, Part 1. The Price of Prophecy. Darkness enveloped Thalia, neither the comforting velvet of night nor the peaceful oblivion of sleep, but something deeper, a void between consciousness and dream where time lost meaning. The crystal platform beneath her continued to pulse with ancient energy, its rhythmic glow casting eerie shadows across the chamber walls. Her body remained motionless, while her mind plunged through layers of reality that shouldn't have been accessible to ordinary perception. Viola's translucent form hovered nearby, those violet blue eyes so like Thalia's own watching with clinical detachment as her descendant's consciousness separated from physical anchors. The apparition's hands moved in precise patterns above the platform, directing energies with the practiced expertise of a lifetime dedicated to understanding the boundaries between worlds.
"The blood remembers what the mind forgets,"
she murmured, her voice carrying harmonic qualities that vibrated through the chamber's crystal architecture.
"See what approaches, child of my lineage. See what choices await where paths converge."
The darkness surrounding Thalia's awareness shifted, crystallizing into tangible landscape that materialized with unsettling clarity. She stood upon a glass bridge spanning infinite void, the same dreamscape structure she had walked with Elian, yet somehow different. The stars surrounding it burned with unusual intensity, constellations arranging themselves into patterns that seemed to convey warnings in a language beyond ordinary comprehension. Ahead, the bridge divided into 3 distinct paths, each leading toward a different manifestation of the same destination. Thalia felt herself drawn forward by forces beyond her control, her consciousness splitting to experience all 3 pathways simultaneously. The first path materialized around her with devastating clarity. A vast circular chamber carved from living crystal stretched in all directions, 9 enormous structures arranged in perfect geometric formation, creating a nonagon of immense scale. At each intersection where energy lines connected these structures, smaller crystal formations pulsed with failing light. 27 total, each housing a fragment of consciousness that maintained the prison's integrity. Thalia saw herself standing at the chamber's center, Elian beside her, both gazing upon the weakening matrix with expressions of grim determination. The silver streak in his hair gleamed with unusual brightness in this realm, starlight occasionally visible beneath his skin when he moved.
"It's failing,"
Dream Elian observed, his voice carrying that rough edge she had come to find comforting, despite its indication of danger.
"The first walker's essence has nearly dispersed completely. Without renewal, the prison walls collapse within days."
Dream Thalia nodded, her violet blue eyes reflecting the crystal structures surrounding them.
"Then we make our choice,"
she replied, resolution hardening her features into unfamiliar severity.
"Together we break or together we seal?"
Watching this vision unfold, the real Thalia felt her heart constrict with anticipation and dread. Something terrible approached, knowledge she both needed and feared to possess. The vision continued with merciless clarity, denying her the comfort of uncertainty.
"It must be me,"
her dream self declared, stepping toward the weakest intersection point where light had nearly faded completely.
"My blood carries the formula. The Plague Maker's legacy flows through my veins."
Dream Elian reached for her, his face transforming with anguish the real Thalia had never witnessed in his carefully controlled expressions.
"There must be another way,"
he insisted, desperation roughening his voice further.
"The prophecy speaks of us together, not separate, not you alone."
Dream Thalia's smile contained terrible gentleness as she touched his cheek with lingering tenderness.
"Sometimes together means parallel sacrifice rather than unified action,"
she replied, stepping back before he could prevent her retreat.
"My blood began this. My blood will complete it."
Before Dream Elian could intervene, She pressed her palm against the failing crystal intersection. Light exploded outward, engulfing her form in blinding radiance that consumed rather than illuminated. When the brilliance faded, Dreamthalia's body remained, not destroyed, but transformed into crystal essence that spread through the matrix, reinforcing failing connections with renewed energy. Elian fell to his knees before this crystalline statue that had been living woman moments before, his face a study in devastation that transcended ordinary grief. The silver streak in his hair dimmed noticeably, as though her sacrifice had extinguished something essential within him as well.
You chose for both of us,
he whispered, one hand reaching toward her transformed form without quite touching its crystalline surface.
Together we sealed, yet I remain alone.
The vision blurred at its edges, reality already shifting toward the second path, as Thalia's consciousness was pulled inexorably onward. The last image searing itself into her awareness was Elian's expression, a desolation that suggested existence without purpose, continuation without meaning. The second pathway crystallized around her with equal clarity. The same chamber, the same failing prison matrix, the same critical moment of choice. Yet in this manifestation, subtle differences emerged in posture and positioning that changed everything that followed. Elian stood nearest the weakest intersection, his midnight blue eyes studying the failing crystal with analytical intensity. The silver streak in his hair pulsed with rhythmic light, starlight beneath his skin fully visible rather than merely suggested.
The matrix responds to Dreamwalker essence,
he observed, tracing patterns in the air that left luminescent trails lingering after his fingers passed.
The first walker's sacrifice created the foundation. Another of his kind must reinforce it.
Dreamthalia moved closer, her expression betraying fear, carefully controlled beneath diplomatic composure.
You're only half Dreamwalker,
she countered, hand rising to touch the silver streak in his hair with gentle reverence.
The prophecy speaks of us together. Your sacrifice alone would be
insufficient on its own,
he interrupted, capturing her hand and pressing a kiss against her palm with aching tenderness.
But, combined with your blood's formula, rebuilt along the pattern your ancestor designed, enough.
Understanding transformed Dreamthalia's features into mask of horror.
No,
she whispered, fingers curling into his as though physical connection might prevent what approached.
There must be alternatives we haven't considered.
Elian smiled, gentle expression that contained acceptance rather than resignation.
Together we break or together we seal,
he quoted, releasing her hand and stepping back beyond her reach.
My father was bound to the dreamscape by nature. I enter this binding by choice, but the choice remains mine to make.
Before Dreamthalia could respond, he pressed both palms against the failing crystal intersection. Light erupted outward, white-hot brilliance that consumed his physical form even as it rejuvenated the weakening matrix. Within heartbeats, his body transformed into crystalline essence that flowed through the prison structure, reinforcing connections with power drawn from his unique heritage. Dreamthalia collapsed before the statue that had been living man moments before, her composure shattering completely. Diplomatic masks dissolved into raw grief that transformed her features into something Thalia herself wouldn't have recognized in mirror.
You chose for both of us,
she whispered, tears tracking silver paths down her cheeks.
Together we sealed, yet I remain alone.
This vision too began dissolving at its edges, the third pathway already pulling at Thalia's divided consciousness. The final image imprinted on her awareness was her own devastated expression. Diplomatic poise, abandoned in face of loss, too profound for practiced masks to contain. The third pathway materialized with greater intensity than either previous vision, the chamber's details rendered with almost painful clarity. Dreamthalia and Elian stood together at the prison's center, hands clasped between them, as they studied the failing matrix with matching expressions of resolute determination.
Neither of us alone.
Dream Elian stated, the silver streak in his hair gleaming like captured starlight.
That's what we've misunderstood about the prophecy. Not sacrifice of one or the other, but transformation of both.
Dream Thalia nodded, violet blue eyes reflecting the crystal structures surrounding them.
Together we break or together we seal.
She repeated, understanding dawning in her expression.
Not separate actions aligned in purpose, but unified transformation through shared intention.
They approached the weakest intersection point, where light had nearly faded completely. Unlike previous visions, they moved in perfect synchronization, neither leading nor following, but perfectly balanced in their advance.
Your blood carries the formula.
Dream Elian said, positioning himself to her right.
My essence bridges reality and dreamscape. Combined, we create what neither could achieve alone.
Not destruction?
She agreed, standing to his left.
Recreation along patterns designed for our time, rather than centuries past.
They pressed their palms against the failing crystal simultaneously, their free hands remaining clasped between them. Light exploded outward, engulfing both figures in blinding radiance that somehow enhanced rather than obscured Thalia's perception of what followed. Their physical forms dissolved not into crystal stasis like previous visions, but into luminescent energy that remained distinctly individual while becoming fundamentally interconnected. The matrix absorbed this combined essence, lines of power strengthening throughout the entire prison structure. Within this light, their consciousness remained active, transformed rather than diminished. Their voices spoke in unison, harmonizing in ways that transcended ordinary vocal range. Together we seal what must remain contained, they declared, their combined energies flowing through weakened boundaries and reinforcing failing connections. Together we break limitations that prevent true guardianship. The vision's conclusion approached with mounting intensity, the transformation nearly complete, when suddenly, red light flooded Thalia's perception. Harsh crimson that shattered the vision sequence with jarring abruptness. An alarm sounded through the chamber, high-pitched wailing that penetrated consciousness and physical awareness simultaneously. The crystal platform beneath her physical body pulsed with warning patterns, its previously stable energy fluctuating wildly.
Intruders approach.
Her ancestor's apparition announced, translucent form flickering as some external force disrupted the connection between them.
The Guardian cannot hold them back indefinitely.
Thalia's consciousness slammed back into her physical body with disorienting suddenness. She gasped, lungs burning as though she'd been holding her breath for minutes rather than seconds. The chamber's walls flashed with projected images, surveillance views showing a large contingent of Bellatory warriors in Pyrotus colors, methodically breaching the workshop's outer defenses. She struggled upright, limbs responding sluggishly after their period of magical stasis. Viola's apparition had begun dissolving, connection weakening as security systems activated throughout the facility.
Wait,
She called to the fading figure.
the third path. What does it mean? Does it break the prison or strengthen it?
The apparition's expression shifted, not answering directly, but offering something adjacent to compassion as her form continued dissipating.
The prophecy exists because multiple outcomes remain possible.
She replied, her voice growing fainter with each word.
The choice approaches. Blood of my blood. Make it with clear understanding rather than fear's distortion.
Before Thalia could press for clarification, the apparition vanished completely. The chamber's formerly open doorway sealed shut with grinding finality, crystal panels sliding together to form seamless barrier between her and the route she had entered through.
Elian!
His name escaped her lips before conscious thought formed, fear for his well-being overwhelming other concerns. He had been injured by the Guardian, possibly severely, and now Pyrotus' forces approached, with unknown but certainly hostile intentions. On the opposite side of the circular chamber, a previously hidden doorway slid open. Blue light pulsed along the floor, creating an illuminated pathway leading away from the approaching danger. The surveillance projections continued showing Bellatori warriors advancing through the workshop's outer chambers. The illuminated path offered the best chance for survival, while her heart demanded she find Elian, regardless of personal risk. The debate lasted mere seconds before reality forced decision. Without access to the original doorway, returning to Elian through that route was impossible regardless of her preference. She followed the blue light with reluctant haste, each step feeling like betrayal despite its necessity. The pathway led through sections of the workshop she hadn't previously explored. Laboratories containing strange equipment, storage chambers housing artifacts preserved through centuries by powerful enchantments, living quarters for multiple researchers that had once occupied the facility.
I need to find him,
she thought, the words repeating with each hurried step. Once I'm clear of immediate danger, I can circle back, find another entrance, reach him somehow. The blue light guided her through increasingly narrow passages that sloped gradually upward. Occasional surveillance projections appeared on smooth stone walls, showing Bellatori forces having breached the central laboratory area where she and Elian had initially entered. No projection revealed Elian himself, leaving his condition and location frustratingly unknown.
Please be alive,
she whispered into empty corridor, the plea both prayer and promise. Her fingers closed around the ceremonial dagger at her hip, its familiar weight offering minimal comfort despite its limited practical value against enhanced warriors. After what felt like hours, but might have been merely minutes, the passageway terminated at a circular portal crafted from a material resembling opaque glass. The blue light converged at this barrier, pulsing with increased urgency as surveillance projections showed Bellatori forces having reached the chamber where she had experienced her visions. The portal slid open at her approach, revealing a natural cavern beyond whose rough stone walls contrasted sharply with the workshop's precisely engineered architecture. Daylight filtered through a narrow crevice at the cavern's far end. Thalia hesitated, turning to look back along the passageway she had traveled.
I can't just leave,
she said aloud, though no one remained to hear her objection.
Elian could be injured, captured. He came here because of me.
The surveillance projection nearest her location flared with sudden activity. The image showed Bellatori warriors having discovered the crystal platform, their enhanced forms surrounding it with military precision while examining its structure with obvious interest. A figure in sovereign armor directed their efforts, though the angle prevented clear view of their face. The portal began closing as though responding to a nearby threat, its transparent surface darkening as security protocols activated. Thalia's options collapsed to single choice: forward through a narrowing opening or backward towards certain capture. With heart feeling like lead within her chest, she stepped through the portal. Its surface sealed behind her with a final click, leaving her alone in the natural cavern with only distant daylight as guide. The journey through rough-hewn passage proved arduous, narrow sections requiring her to turn sideways while squeezing through, low ceilings forcing uncomfortable stooping that strained already tired muscles. When she finally emerged through crevice into open air, late afternoon sun momentarily blinded her with its unfiltered brilliance. She stood upon a mountain slope, facing away from the workshop's entrance. Desert stretched before her in endless waves of sand, no sign of civilization or shelter visible to horizon's edge. The realization of her situation settled like a cold stone in her stomach. Alone, minimal supplies, no mount, and no knowledge of which direction might lead to safety.
Think,
she instructed herself.
Assess resources, determine priorities, establish plan.
Her pack contained precious little: the journals rescued from her ancestors' workshop, basic survival equipment taken when they fled Pirotus, water sufficient for perhaps 2 days if carefully rationed. The ceremonial dagger remained her only weapon, water steel blade designed for symbolic significance rather than practical combat. More crushing than physical isolation was the emotional desolation that pressed against her carefully maintained composure. For days, Elian had been a constant presence at her side, protector, guide, and something far more complicated that defied simple categorization. His absence created a void that transcended mere practical disadvantage, an ache that lodged beneath her breastbone with surprising intensity.
I never told him.
The thought surfaced unbidden, sending unexpected heat behind her eyes. Never acknowledged what happened in the dreamscape. Never allowed myself to fully accept what grows between us, despite all reason opposing it. She forced these reflections aside, focusing instead on immediate survival needs. Sentiment offered no protection against desert heat or lurking predators. Feeling would not guide her toward water or shelter. Emotion solved nothing about their shared predicament or the choices revealed through her visions. Yet as she descended the mountain slope toward open desert, those visions continued replaying through her thoughts with merciless clarity. Each pathway ended with terrible sacrifice, either her crystallization into a prison component, Elian's transformation into matrix energy, or both of them undergoing a mysterious conversion that possibly released the very entities they sought to contain.
The third path,
She considered, reaching relatively flat ground and pausing to assess her options. Together entering the prison structure. Was that what breaks rather than seals? Is separation necessary for containment rather than release? No answer presented itself in the empty landscape surrounding her. The sun continued its descent toward the horizon, shadows lengthening across sand with the promise of approaching night. She chose a direction arbitrarily, having no reference points to guide her selection, and began walking with a measured pace that conserved energy while making progress. With each step, fear and uncertainty crowded closer. Fear for Elian's safety, uncertainty about the prophecy's true meaning, fear of choices approaching without sufficient information, uncertainty about whether separation had been orchestrated. Most disturbing was the third vision's ambiguity. The first 2 pathways clearly resulted in prison containment, albeit at a terrible cost to both herself and Elian. But that third possibility, their unified transformation, remained frustratingly unclear in its ultimate consequence. Would their combined essence strengthen prison walls or inadvertently break them? Did Viola's final words suggest clarification or merely acknowledge genuine uncertainty?
together we break or together we seal,
She whispered, the prophecy's words carrying new weight after witnessing potential manifestations. The desert wind snatched phrase from her lips, scattering syllables across endless sand with complete indifference to their significance. Night approached with desert swiftness, temperature dropping rapidly as the sun vanished beneath the horizon. Stars emerged with brilliant clarity, constellations taking shape across velvet darkness above. In their cold light, Thalia continued walking, each step carrying her further from the workshop that might contain answers, further from Elian, whose absence created a wound she hadn't anticipated, further into uncertainty that offered neither comfort nor clear direction.
Find shelter,
She instructed herself, pushing emotion aside with practiced discipline. Survive the night. But as darkness claimed the desert completely, doubt whispered that tomorrow might bring only further isolation rather than reunion, additional questions rather than needed answers. The Wellspring's prophecy hung over her like suspended blade. Together they break, or together they seal, its dual possibilities offering no comfort in her solitary state. The stars continued their eternal procession overhead, indifferent to human concerns beneath their distant light. The desert night embraced Thalia with cold clarity that matched her internal desolation. Chapter 11, Part 2, Worlds Between. The desert night wrapped around Thalia like a shroud, stars wheeling overhead in cold brilliance. Wind whispered across the dunes, erasing her footprints almost as quickly as she made them. Her legs burned with exhaustion, each step becoming a deliberate act of will rather than automatic movement. The journals pressed against her back, their weight a constant reminder of knowledge gained but not yet understood. A faint blue light danced at the edge of her vision. Thalia blinked, certain her tired eyes were creating illusions from starlight and shadow. The light persisted, hovering just ahead like a fragment of sky given earthly form. It bobbed in place, then darted forward several paces before pausing again.
"What are you?"
she whispered, her voice rough from thirst. The light pulsed once, twice, then streaked away before circling back. Its movements seemed deliberate, patient, as though waiting for her to follow. Desert survival lessons from Elian echoed in her memory. Warnings about mirages, hallucinations, predators that lured travelers with bioluminescent displays. But something about this light felt different. It radiated a gentle coolness that contrasted with the lingering heat rising from the sand. When it approached, she sensed no danger, only quiet invitation. The light darted forward again, then hovered, its blue glow illuminating a path between two towering dunes. Left with few alternatives and guided by instinct she couldn't properly name, Thalia followed. The tiny sprite led her through a twisting path that seemed to fold back on itself, disorienting her sense of direction. Dunes gave way to scattered rock formations that gradually increased in size and frequency until she found herself navigating a narrow canyon invisible from the open desert. Moonlight barely penetrated this hidden passage, making the sprite's glow her primary guide through the darkness. The canyon walls suddenly opened into a circular grotto that stole what little breath remained in her exhausted lungs. Vegetation flourished in lush profusion, plants unlike any found in Aquilon's most exotic gardens. Leaves glowed with gentle bioluminescence in shades of azure and violet, casting rippling patterns across stone walls polished smooth by unknown forces. At the grotto's center, a pool of water shimmered with impossible stillness, its surface reflecting stars, despite the overhanging canopy that should have blocked their light. The blue sprite circled the grotto once, its light intensifying briefly before it vanished into the canopy above. Thalia stood frozen, caught between desperate need for the water before her and caution. A sweet fragrance drifted through the air, emanating from bell-shaped flowers that opened as she watched, their petals unfurling in gentle welcome. The scent carried no warning of poison or intoxication, only pure refreshment that called to her parched throat.
"Thank you,"
she whispered to the absent sprite, uncertain if gratitude was appropriate, yet feeling its necessity nonetheless. She approached the pool slowly, kneeling at its edge to examine the water's clarity. No visible contaminants marred its surface, no suspicious sediments collected at its bottom. With careful movements, she cupped her hands and brought water to her lips. The first sip tentative despite her desperate thirst. Coolness spread through her body with the first swallow, not merely quenching thirst, but somehow reaching deeper. Soothing muscles strained beyond reasonable limits, and calming thoughts scattered by fear and exhaustion. She drank slowly, disciplined even in relief, then splashed water against her face, washing away dust and dried sweat. The surrounding vegetation seemed to respond to her presence, luminous leaves shifting to create sheltered alcove against the grotto's wall. Cushioning moss expanded across stone that should have been unyielding, forming natural bedding that invited rest. Thalia removed her pack, placing the precious journals beside her improvised bed. She sank onto the moss with a sigh that carried the accumulated tension of the entire day. Above her, the bioluminescent canopy pulsed in gentle rhythm that matched her gradually slowing heartbeat.
Where are you, Elian?
She whispered to the empty air, violet blue eyes tracking patterns in the glowing canopy.
Are you injured, captured? Did you escape?
No answer came beyond the gentle rustling of luminous leaves. The magical grotto remained peaceful sanctuary, yet failed to fill the aching void left by his absence. Thalia curled onto her side, one hand resting atop the journals, while the other closed around the ceremonial dagger at her hip. Exhaustion pulled at her consciousness, the day's accumulated stresses demanding respite, despite her desire for continued vigilance. As her eyes drifted closed, she realized the moss beneath her body had begun to glow with soft amber light that paired with the azure canopy to create a cocoon of gentle radiance. The combination reminded her of the silver streak in Elian's hair catching sunlight, of starlight glimpsed beneath his skin during their shared moments in the dreamscape. Sleep claimed her between one breath and the next, consciousness dissolving into that liminal space where dream and reality blurred into something neither wholly one nor entirely the other. Thalia stood upon the glass bridge spanning infinite void, stars wheeling around her in familiar patterns that matched no constellations visible from desert skies. The structure beneath her feet hummed with subtle vibration, responding to her presence like living entity rather than mere construction. Unlike previous visits to this realm, she arrived with full awareness of both her physical circumstances and the dreamscape's nature. No disorientation accompanied her transition, only calm recognition of territory previously explored.
Elian?
She called, her voice carrying strange harmonic qualities in this between place.
Are you here?
Silence answered, stretching into an uncomfortable duration. She began walking forward, the bridge extending before her into star-filled darkness without visible destination.
Thalia.
His voice emerged from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously, rough-edged and warm despite its disembodied nature.
I've been searching.
He materialized several paces ahead, the silver streak in his hair glowing with unusual brightness in this realm. Starlight pulsed beneath his skin in patterns, matching the constellations surrounding them, his form simultaneously substantial and ethereal as it solidified from dream stuff into recognizable shape. Thalia moved toward him with instinctive urgency. Her hands reached for him, fingers connecting with surprising solidity despite his dreamscape manifestation.
You're alive,
She breathed, relief cascading through her in waves that the bridge reflected with rippling light beneath her feet.
When the Guardian attacked you, when I couldn't find you.
His arms enfolded her with familiar strength, the contact carrying warmth that transcended their dream state to radiate through her entire being. The silver streak in his hair brushed against her temple, sending tingling awareness cascading through her consciousness.
I'm alive,
He confirmed, midnight blue eyes studying her face with intensity.
Injured but healing.
Where are you?
She demanded, hands moving to cradle his face, reassuring herself of his continued existence through touch.
Are you hidden? Captured?
Something flickered across his features. Frustration mingled with determination.
Hidden.
He replied, the silver streak in his hair pulsing with each word.
Deep in the workshop's lower levels. There's an ancient laboratory.
You need to leave.
She insisted, fingers tightening against his skin.
They're searching methodically. It's only a matter of time before...
I tried finding you physically.
He interrupted, frustration evident in the rough edge entering his voice.
Followed your trail through the mountain passages. But something blocks the exit you used. A barrier that responds to blood rather than force.
Understanding dawned with cold clarity. The workshop's security systems had recognized her heritage, creating an escape route specific to her bloodline while preventing others from following the same path.
Then come to me like before.
She urged, remembering his manifestation in Lorene's tent.
Cross through the dreamscape to reach me physically. I'm in a hidden grotto east of the mountain range.
Pain flashed across his features, the stars beneath his skin dimming momentarily.
I've been trying,
he admitted, one hand rising to touch the silver streak in his hair that marked his mixed heritage.
Something about the workshop creates resistance in the dreamscape, like trying to swim through crystal rather than water. I can barely reach your dreams, and I can't seem to manifest physically where you are.
Her fingers traced the contours of his face, memorizing features she had studied countless times, yet never properly acknowledged. The diplomatic masks she had maintained throughout their journey felt distant here, irrelevant in realm where essence rather than appearance dominated.
I saw visions.
She told him, violet blue eyes holding his midnight gaze.
3 possible futures. In one, I sacrifice myself to strengthen the prison. In another, you give yourself to maintain the matrix.
His expression softened, something adjacent to resignation passing across features typically guarded against revealing inner thoughts.
And the third?
He asked, though something in his tone suggested foreknowledge of her answer.
We enter together,
she replied, the words carrying weight beyond their simplicity.
but I couldn't see the outcome clearly. Together we break, or together we seal. The vision ended before revealing which.
He nodded, no surprise evident in his acceptance.
I've seen fragments of the same possibilities,
he admitted, hand moving to cover hers where it rested against his cheek.
Dreams are becoming increasingly specific since our first connection in the dreamscape.
Something shifted between them, tension transforming from fear into different energy altogether. The glass bridge beneath their feet began glowing with increasing brightness, responding to emotions neither voiced, yet both acknowledged through touch and proximity.
If these are our only options,
he said, voice dropping to register that sent shivers along her spine, despite their dreamscape existence.
then I choose the third path.
Without knowing whether it breaks or seals?
She questioned. His midnight blue eyes held hers with unwavering certainty.
I choose the path where we remain together.
He stated simply, the declaration carrying weight beyond ordinary commitment.
Whatever consequence follows, we face it as one.
The stars surrounding them pulsed with sudden intensity, the bridge beneath their feet humming with energy that vibrated through their connected forms. Diplomacy and caution dissolved like morning mist beneath desert sun, revealing a core truth Thalia had been denying since their first encounter at Convergence Masquerade. Their lips met with none of the hesitation that had characterized previous encounters. The connection ignited something beyond ordinary passion, dreamscape energy responding to their unified intention with cascading brilliance that surrounded their entwined forms. Clothing dissolved without conscious thought, dream stuff responding to desire rather than physical manipulation. Skin against skin created circuits of sensation that transcended ordinary touch, each point of contact generating resonance that rippled through the bridge beneath them and stars surrounding their embraced forms. They sank to their knees upon the glass bridge, which softened beneath them like water becoming solid, then liquid again in response to their movements. His hands traced paths along her body that left trails of starlight lingering after his touch passed, her fingers mapping constellations across his skin that matched patterns shifting beneath its surface.
I've been searching for you my entire life,
he murmured against her throat, the confession emerging without conscious intent.
without recognizing what I sought until finding you.
Words failed her, diplomatic eloquence surrendering to sensation that required different expression altogether. Her body answered his declaration through motion and embrace that communicated beyond language's limitations. Their union transcended physical pleasure, consciousness expanding beyond individual boundaries to create a connection that existed simultaneously in multiple realities. The stars around them began spinning faster, the bridge beneath them pulsing with increasing radiance as energies built toward culmination beyond ordinary experience. Release came with an explosion of light that shattered perception. Their shared consciousness plunged deeper into the dreamscape layers neither had previously accessed, a realm where distinct forms dissolved into pure feeling without visual or tactile reference points. They existed as harmonizing energies rather than separate entities, boundaries meaningless in face of the fundamental connection that transcended physical form.
I felt it.
He whispered, holding her close as their forms regained distinction.
For a moment I understood.
Yes.
She agreed, though already the specifics were dissolving like mist under morning sun, leaving impression without detail.
Something beyond either breaking or sealing?
He pressed his forehead against hers, the silver streak in his hair connecting with her temple in circuit that sent warmth cascading through their still-joined forms.
I'll find you,
he promised, determination hardening his features into an expression she had witnessed during their most dangerous moments.
Whatever barriers exist, I'll break through them.
The dreamscape began dissolving around them, glass bridge fragmenting into shards of light that scattered like diamond dust.
Hurry,
she whispered, as his form started fading from her perception.
I need you.
His smile was the last thing to vanish, as consciousness reclaimed her from the dreamscape depths. The first rays of dawn filtered through the bioluminescent canopy, golden light blending with azure glow in gentle awakening. Thalia stirred slowly, body responding with reluctant heaviness to morning's call. Warmth pressed against her side, weight of arm draped across her waist with comfortable familiarity.
Elian.
Her mind supplied with absolute certainty. She turned towards the warmth, hand reaching to touch what felt so undeniably present. Her fingers met empty moss still glowing with amber light, the impression of presence dissolving like dew under morning sun. The realization of continued solitude struck with unexpected force, breaking through diplomatic composure she had maintained throughout countless political crises. Tears welled and spilled before she could suppress them. Quiet grief for connection experienced, yet physically denied by circumstances beyond her control. The dreamscape encounter had felt so real. His touch, his presence, his promise to find her. Waking to continued isolation after such vivid connection created a wound that her diplomatic training provided no formula to heal. She curled into herself, shoulders shaking with silent sobs that carried accumulated strain of everything experienced since leaving Aquilon. Strong arms suddenly enfolded her from behind, a familiar warmth pressing against her back with undeniable solidity.
I'm here.
His voice rough-edged and warm against her ear, the silver streak in his hair brushing her temple as he drew her closer.
I found you.
Thalia froze, disbelief warring with desperate hope. She turned slowly, half expecting an illusion to dissolve upon examination. Instead, midnight blue eyes met her violet gaze with tangible presence, the silver streak in his hair catching morning light filtering through the grotto's canopy.
How?
She whispered, hands rising to touch his face, fingers confirming the physical reality that dreams alone could not provide. His smile carried equal measures of triumph and exhaustion, the silver streak in his hair pulsing with subtle luminescence that matched neither dawn light nor bioluminescent glow surrounding them.
You showed me the way,
he replied, catching her hand and pressing a kiss against her palm.
What we shared in the dreamscape, that level we reached together, it created bridge strong enough to break through the workshop's barriers.
She pressed herself against him. His arms tightened around her, body solid and real against her own, heartbeat steady beneath her cheek where it rested against his chest. The bioluminescent canopy above them pulsed with sudden brightness, as though the magical grotto itself acknowledged their unification. Morning light continued strengthening, golden rays penetrating azure glow with increasing clarity. A new day approached, bringing challenges yet uncounted and choices still unrecognized.